Hello and welcome to tonight's video where we're covering patch 14.18 and the teams and players and how it will affect their champion pools. In my opinion, when I look at the patch, I look at it very broadly, black and white, a buff's a buff, and a nerf is a nerf, determined by Riot. And then we'll see how it affects each team individually based on how often a player plays that champion. Whether a buff is strong or a nerf is weak or vice versa is kind of irrelevant. We'll see how it stacks up after the tournament is over and we compare metas and patch to patch to see if there was a change. But this is based off of how often a player may have picked a champion, like I said. So top lane we have Gnar. Gnar was played by pretty much everybody. Pretty much 2/3 to 3/4 of the player base. Gnar is a very common champion picked in the top lane, and most players played it above 8% of their games since Season 12 to now, which is what I utilize as my sample. The three most common Gnar players are Summit for Rainbow 7. He played it 1 out of every 5 games, 39 of 196. Wiser of Pain Gaming, who just went to Worlds, so we're going to ignore the Vivo keyed stars on here when we go over it. Wiser for Pain, 18% of games played, 34 of 192. And then Kingin of D plus Kia, 17% of his games, 60 of 356 are on Gnar. Now, the players that played it less than 8%, so really are not big Gnar, not 8%, it's 4% for buffs, 8% for nerfs. These players played it less than 4%, so 1 out of every 25 games don't even meet that threshold. So 369 of Top Esports, Broken Blade of G2, Impact of Team Liquid, Oscar Innen of Fnatic, Bwippo of FlyQuest, and Sniper of 100 Thieves all do not play Gnar very often. Jax buff, similar deal. Majority of players play Jax. We see it all the time. Nanu of Viking Esports, 26% of his games, 11 of 43 this year because it's all he's played in Tier 1. Tier 1 of his region. Zika of LNG, 16%, 47 picks out of 289. And then Bin of BLG, 15%, 61 of 415. Then we have about 10 players that didn't play it, 4%. Zeus of T1, Kingin, Perfect of KT, 369, Evie of SoftBank Hawks Gaming, Bwippo of FlyQuest, and Mirwin of Mad Lions Koi. All are not big Jax players. Smolder was nerfed, and I added this after the fact. I got to the 80 carries. I said, I think Mirwin played 80 carries top. Did it actually reach the threshold for nerfs? And actually, I just skipped around, but just bear with me here for a second. He played Smolder 3 games out of 30, so that's 10% of his games, and that's a nerf to Mirwin. He plays Smolder enough to meet the threshold for it being a nerf towards him. Now, back to the buffs. Jace is buffed. Top laners that played Jace at least 4% of games. Zeus of T1, 9%, that's 41 picks. Doran, 7% with 24. Wiser, 7% with 13. Mirwin picked it 4 times this year, which is 5% of his games. Kiea of Gam Esports, 5%, 15 picks. Summit, 5%, 9 picks. 369, 4%, 16 picks. A lot of carry-oriented top laners up there, right? Not a big surprise. Jace is that type of champion. Rumble nerfs. Wiser played it 1 out of every 5 games before today. Keep in mind, I do not have stats from this morning or last night for this. I accumulated the stats yesterday and then put them on the board today. So Wiser, 20%, 5 picks out of 25 games. Doran, 17%, 8 picks. Impact, 17%, 5 picks. Ozzy, PSG, Talon, 16% of his games, that's picked 5 times. Zika, 13%, 6 times. Perfect, 13%. Kingin, 13%. Kiea, 10%. And Clear of FearX, 9%. Because still, technically, FearX could win regional finals in the LCK and go to Worlds. So that's the top lane. Jungle role, we see a lot of players play the champions that are affected. So Jarvan although we feel like we see it often and everybody kind of plays it, nobody plays it, at least 4% of games, quite like River and Inspired. River played it 10% of his games the last 2.5 years. That's 19 times out of 192. Inspired of FlyQuest 15 times out of 215. Nobody else is even 1 out of every 25 games. Viego. Everybody played Viego except the CB Lull pair. So Carrick of Pain Gaming does not play Viego, so he is not buffed by the Viego buff. And then we have Guri, actually. Guri plays for Viking Esports, and that's also a player that's affected by this. Xin Zhao. Everybody pretty much, I would say 3/4 of the teams here play Xin Zhao enough to meet the buff. But the top 3, Raptor of Fear X, 16%, 8 picks out of 50. Carrick of Pain Gaming plays Xin Zhao 11% of games, 21 of 192. And Umpty, 25 picks out of 245, roughly 10%. The players that do not play Xin Zhao often, and you'd be like, oh, really? So, yeah, these guys don't play it 1 out of every 25 games. Lucid, Yike, Elyoya, Canyon, Adi of Rainbow 7, Peanut, Levi, Guri, and Forrest of SoftBank Hawks Gaming all do not play Xin Zhao. Very often. Not nearly as much as those that rely on it. And the way I look at it is if a player does pick a champion often, when it may not be strong, that gives me an indication that, when it's strong, this player's more likely going to give it a go than somebody that's kind of wishy-washy on when to utilize it. Some nerfs to the jungle. So Ivern nerfed. The tree is nerfed. Both trees actually are nerfed. So Tien of Top Esports had played at 15% of games, 8 pick rate. He's played at 15% of games this summer, which is 8%, 8 times. Razork played it 5 times, which was 14%. Elyoya, 4 times, 13%. Piochik, 6 times, 13%. Inspired played it quite a bit, 12%. Umpty, 10. Yike, 10. Weiwei, 9. And Peanut, 8. All of them playing at least 1 out of every 12 games this summer. Lilia nerf, similar deal here. Levi, over 1 out of every 5 games, Levi of Gammy Sports played Lilia this past summer. Junjia for PSG Talent, pretty much the same thing. Inspired, 18% of his games. Wei, 16% of his for BLG. River, 16%. Tien, 15%. Tarzan of Weibo, 12%. Weiwei of LNG, 11%. And then we also have Owner, Lucid, and Canyon, all 9% of their games in summer, piloting a Lilia. Maokai. Everybody played Maokai. More than 8% of their games except 3 players. Levi, Junjia, and Owner. So, Gam, T1, and PSG all do not play Maokai very often in their comps, or at least were allowed to play it in the jungle role. So that doesn't really hurt them all that much. Vi. Lucid. 21% of his games were played on Vi. We're going to see that the LCK played a lot of Vi, and everybody else kind of really didn't. So, Lucid, 21% of games. That's more than 1 out of every 5. Peanut, 21%. 1 out of every 5. Raptor, 20%. Same deal. Owner, 15%. Elyoya, 13%. Levi, also 13. Piochik, 13. Forrest, 12. Yike, 12. Razork, 11. So, LEC and LCK teams relying on Vi more than others. Sorry about that noise. But nevertheless, this is the deal with Vi. So, the jungle role, we did see quite a bit of nerfs. Will it affect things? Who knows? I think some people want to kind of condemn it one way or the other before the tournament begins, and then when the tournament's over and they're wrong, they get really quiet, and next year think they can continue to do the same thing they did before Worlds, but this year we're going to make sure we check people on that sort of stuff. And then that new tag in the Discord, the Delulu tag, is a great one. I've had my peers, my peers, but also the peers of the Discord, the mods, hand out that role to those they believe aren't based in reality, and I think it's doing great things. So when we're wrong and we don't take account for things, well, we hold accountable in another way. So now into the second half of this video. Okay, now for the other three roles. We have mid lane. So Ahri was buffed. Everybody plays Ahri except 4 players going into this event. 4% of the time. Actually 3. Quad of FlyQuest, not a big Ahri guy, at least in Tier 1. Keen of Rainbow 7, and, well, Leleco is no longer because Vivo Keystars didn't make it. So, Quad and Keen do not play Ahri. Everybody else does. We see Ahri a lot. So when you see somebody that doesn't play it, it's like, oh, well, this is a thing. Ahri's not really in their bag of tricks. Jace mid. Maple of PSG, 8% of his games, which is 15 times he's picked Jace last 2.5 years, 3 years or so. Scout of LNG, 25 times has he picked Jace. Quid, 5 times so far the last year and a half, which is enough. It's 6%. Knight, 22 times, 6%. Humanoid, 14 times. Dasher for SoftBank Hawks Gaming, picked them 11 times. And Showmaker, 5% pick rate, which is 15 of his 331 games the last 3 years or so. Other notables, Corki is nerfed. Everybody plays Corki except Quid. Quid is not a big Corki guy, and thus is not nerfed by the Corki nerf. Azir. A lot of people play Azir. Faker played it the most this summer. 1 out of every 4 games, which was 15 times. BDD played it 15%, 7 times. Caps, 14%, 7 times. And those are the top 3. And then there's a bunch of others. And then we have the group that didn't play a lot of Azir and aren't all that affected by the nerf. Frescali, Mad Lions Koi, Dasher of SoftBank Hawks, Closer of FearX, Keen Rainbow 7, Jiaohu, Weibo, Maple, PSG, Knight, BLG, Katie, Viking Esports, APA, Team Liquid, Emo of GAM, all did not play Azir enough to actually be nerfed by the nerf. Smolder is nerfed. These 80 carries being picked in solo lanes. 3 players played Smolder at least 8% of the time. BDD of KT played it 10%, 5 picks. Quid, 10%, 3 picks. And Quad of FlyQuest, 9% and 3 picks. So those 3 are hurt by the Smolder nerf. Zeri affects a few players as well. A handful played Zeri mid quite a lot. Quid of 100 Thieves, 19% of his games before last night were on Zeri. Jiaohu, 17% for Weibo. Cream of Top Esports, 15%. Dasher, 14%. Katie, 14%. Maple, 13%. Big Zeri enjoyers. Bot lane, not a lot of stats for Jinx because, well, I don't have enough space. So, we see a lot of players play Jinx. You figure anybody could really pull it out. Well, over the last 2.5 years, these players not really playing a lot of Jinx, and in part this is going to be due to the meta. When I think about it, these guys all started really playing the last year or so, and Jinx hasn't been as prevalent. So we do not know if it really carries over to Tier 1 because of this. CEO of Rainbow 7, Pays of Gen.g, Yeon of Team Liquid, Masu of FlyQuest, and Easy Love of GAM Esports. Misfortune, players that don't really play a lot of MF. Henna of FearX, Gala of LNG, Light of Weibo. No, actually, that was Noah. Color-coded. Noah of Fnatic doesn't play MF, really. Gumayushi, T1, Easy Love, GAM Esports. Oh. See, I'm a moron. So MF is in red. Red means a nerf, which means those I'm listing here are nerfed. Oh, it says not. Full transparency. I'm not making sense of my own board for a second. But MF, so it's not affecting Henna, Gala, Noah, Guma, Easy Love, Yeon, Masu, Pays, Shogun, CEO. Varus nerfs do affect Pays. 19% of his games are on Varus this summer. Hansama, 14%. Light, 11%. Masu, 9%. Cheetan, 8%. All played a lot of Varus. Zeri nerfs. The players that didn't play a lot of Zeri. Shogun of Viking Esports, Deft of KT, Easy Love, Gala, Elk, Cheaton of Pain Gaming, Hansama, Light, Masu, and Jackie Love. Those guys didn't play a lot of Zeri, so Zeri nerfs don't really affect them. Ziggs. Tomo of 100 Thieves going into last night had played Ziggs 6 times of 20 games. That's 30% of his games. It's been nerfed. Gala 17%, Pays 15, Shogun 14, Betty of PSG 13, Light 11, Elk 10, Henna 9, Viper of HLE 8. All of those guys affected by the Ziggs nerfs. They play Ziggs quite a bit, and they're trying to get him out of the bot lane. Support role. So, these buffs and nerfs affect pretty much everybody, but there are very few players that aren't, and so Wei buffs for support. Wei is a new champion. Only Beryl played Wei at least 4% of his games this year. 4 times out of 97, Beryl's played Wei. Nobody else has played that much. That's going to be at Worlds. And Wei, I believe those buffs are cited as support buffs in the patch, which is why I only include it there. Of course, mid lane played a lot of Wei, but if it's only for support or gaining or going towards support, that's why it's the way it is. Lulu. What support doesn't play Lulu? Well, there are a few that don't really play it very much. Lions Rainbow 7, Elio of GAM Esports, BA of Viking Esports, Alvaro of Mad Lions Koi, Enduro of FearX. Don't play a lot of Lulu. Alvaro and Duro, that's going to happen because they really haven't played that much to begin with, and the meta hasn't fit Lulu, so we don't know if it carries over to Tier 1 or not. Leona, everybody played Leona except Curry. Curry did not play a lot of Leona in CB Low, so everyone else hurt by the Leona nerfs except him. Rel, also nerfed. However, Mako of Top Esports and Lahens of Gen G didn't play a lot of Rel, so those nerfs don't affect them and change things for them all that much. Now, in terms of the cumulative look at this, how are teams actually affected? Yesterday's video, everybody was either net 0 or worse. Actually, this patch, one team comes out ahead, and it's BLG, +1. Ironically, they were the only team -5 yesterday. So, take it for what you will. These patches in the champion pools, at least based on the champions they've chosen for buffs and nerfs, the players have not been playing these champions very often the last couple of years in some of these roles. And then also, the nerfs do affect a lot of players. So it is, if some of these do pan out, 4 of the top 10 change in presence, I mean, it'll make a difference. And then it goes from there. So, BLG +1, net 0, Pain Gaming T1, -1, PSG Talon LNG, GAM Esports Fnatic Rainbow 7, -2, FearX Team Liquid Top Esports SoftBank Hawks, Weibo Viking Esport 100 Thieves, -3, KT and Gen G, -4, Mad Lions Koi, D plus Kia, HLE, and G2. And then -5, FlyQuest. FlyQuest are the most nerfed by this patch. At least 5 champions are nerfed out of their champion pools, let alone what is buffed. So, that is a thing. Hopefully, these patches do change things. They tend to more often than not, despite, like I said, the naysayers will say it won't. And it does become a thing that they just don't know really. Numbers hurt people's feelings because they want to be validated, and I don't do that. We work it out, and whether it's, emotion should not affect how things operate as far as numbers are concerned. Like, balance, the theory of balancing something is based on numbers. Like, balancing would be 50-50, right? So the goal is trying to get to 50%, or everything being viable, or everything not being viable, which, would be, even as well. That would be balanced. So, That's the thing. Like, we can't operate based off of feelings or emotions. We have to operate based off of numbers. Now, numbers, the attempts, these are attempts. They may not work. Maybe things become an unintended consequence or benefit based on what they've done with this patch and the patch yesterday. It's kind of just how you have to look at it. I mean, you have no control over it, anyways. So, more often than not, it works out. Whether it works out the way you like it is kind of irrelevant because how big is the player base? How many different cultures are involved in the player base, etc. It kind of is, it's a hodgepodge of nonsense. So, yeah, so thank you for watching. If you like the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.